construction industry is advancing like never before. Technology, material advancements, and specialty contractors are paving the way for a higher quality finished product when it comes to homes, commercial buildings, bridges, structures, and so on. As advanced as the industry has become, there's still a force too strong for any project to truly overcome: the weather. Now, regardless of where you are in the world as you watch this, there will be weather conditions unique to your area that must be planned around or adapted to for project success. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome. My name is Patrick, and I'm making this video because...
And winter is coming.
And I figured it's the perfect time to talk about how weather affects construction. Although we can't control the weather, we could certainly plan for it ahead of time. So today, we'll be talking about 10 ways your project will be affected by Mother Nature and what you can or cannot do to plan for it. Now, before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, OSHA Campus by 360 Training. If you're in need of an OSHA 10 or 30-hour training course, OSHA Campus offers flexible, affordable, 100% online training options to fit your schedule. If you sign up using our link, we may receive a small commission which helps support the channel. Now, let's get into today's topic.
We're there.
The safety of workers is a lot harder to guarantee in the midst of severe weather. Let's talk about a few hazards one can face while working in extreme conditions. When thunderstorms roll in, the risk of electrocution due to lightning is much higher when working at elevation, in heavy machinery, on scaffolding, or close to metal structures. Severe heat and cold can cause the body to physically shut down and therefore pose a serious risk to worker health. Heavy rain and ice can cause workers to slip, and given that falls are the #1 cause of construction fatalities, adding slippery work surfaces to the mix is just asking for trouble. When it comes to forces like hurricanes, tornadoes, and other extreme acute weather events,
Forget about it.
in this case, the most obvious solution is the correct one. The best way to ensure worker safety when it comes to severe weather is to not work in it at all. Concrete and masonry work requires that we mix water, sand, stone, and minerals to prepare the final product for use. Obviously, this cannot happen in certain weather conditions. Freshly poured concrete can get ruined when subjected to heavy rain, unless it's protected very well, and even then, it's not without risk. Stored materials like cement and sand can be ruined if not properly stored, particularly when an unfavorable combination of moisture, humidity, and temperature is present. And of course, when temperatures are extremely low, water can't be used at all without the risk of it turning to ice in our concrete or mortar mixture. There are ways to mitigate these factors to a certain extent, like mixing additives into concrete to help it set in extreme cold or high heat. Water can also be heated before mixed into mortar for better results. We can do our best to keep poured materials protected from the rain, and raw materials can be stored in such a way so that they won't get damaged. But the underlying theme is that these means and methods must be planned for in advance for them to work. Otherwise, this type of work ain't gonna work. The ideal work conditions for roofers, siding installers, and other exterior trades consist of low humidity, clear skies, and moderate temperatures. As far as I know, there isn't a single place on Earth with that kind of weather year-round. Out of all the weather conditions one can have, rain is the biggest headache, or perhaps nightmare, for exterior building trades. Why is that? Well, let me tell you, a fully removed roof will leak like crazy during a storm unless it's heavily protected. And even then, the risk of a serious leak inside the building is high. The same can be said about removing siding. To effectively mitigate this risk, non-waterproofed substrates underneath the roof or siding should get as little exposure to the elements as possible during the demolition phase, upon which time either a temporary water barrier or permanent waterproofing should be installed. Roofing products are also sensitive to moisture too. Tar-based roofing products and liquid materials need dry weather to cure. Underlayment fabrics can garner mold over time if they get wet as well. Not to mention, it's not exactly safe to work on a pitched roof in the rain. So in short, rain and exterior finished work just don't mix. Try walking through a dirt-filled construction site in the northern US during the winter, and you'll trip over tire tracks so frozen in the dirt they'd make a sledgehammer blush. Now imagine trying to excavate for a foundation or a 500-foot-long trench in that soil. Even without snow in the ground, it'll be quite the difficult undertaking. While it can certainly be done using heavy equipment and ground thawing methods, the project quickly becomes costly while doing so. backfilling and effectively placing new fill is also problematic in frigid temperatures. So unless the schedule and deadlines are so critical that excavation in the winter is unavoidable, it doesn't make sense to sequence any foundation work until the ground thaws out. Waterproofing, painting, caulking, and adhesive work are all sensitive to temperature. After reviewing product data, you'll find that many materials in these categories cannot be installed unless it's a dry day between 40 degrees and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 85 degrees Fahrenheit on the higher end. These materials are also sensitive to humidity, dew, and other types of moisture. Even when it comes to storage, most of these materials must be stored in a dry, stable environment with limited humidity. High-strength industrial coatings even require a controlled environment to properly cure. This can include building a temporary plastic enclosure around the work area that is fully temperature and humidity controlled to suit the product's requirements. Painting, waterproofing, and sealing trades boom from late spring to mid-fall in the United States, but are sporadic at best during the rest of the year, unless your project is indoors or in warm, dry climates. If your project must get done despite more extreme temperatures, you could try looking for materials that are specifically made for high or low temperature curing, but otherwise we must be careful and use temporary measures to heat or cool the work area, as well as maintain a somewhat even humidity level with minimal moisture. Now before we move on to the next category, I'd like to take a moment to mention that I offer virtual one-on-one mentorship. I'm a civil engineer with 17 years of experience in the commercial construction industry, and it's a true joy to be able to share these experiences and skills I've picked up along the way to help other PMs learn, grow, and prosper. Whether you're a new project manager just starting out looking for guidance, or you're a more experienced PM looking to talk about a more detailed topic, I offer both 30 and 60-minute sessions. To learn more or to book a call today, check out the link in the description below. Speaking of work that only happens for half the year, the landscape installation industry is heavily affected by the weather. In the northern United States, there's very little landscaping work that can be done between the late fall and early spring other than the occasional odd job. The soil is either frozen, soaked, or snow-covered, making it near impossible to do certain types of work. Now, other areas won't experience the frigid winters that the North gets, at least in the United States, but it can still get heavy seasonal rain that prevents most landscaping work just the same. Landscaping is not affected as much in the warmer states, of course, but many plants and shrubs don't require maintenance all year in the first place. For these reasons, landscaping is one of the most seasonally effective types of work on this list. Jobsite flooding can affect both residential and commercial projects, so long as they involve working outdoors or in non-weather-tight spaces. Open foundations and uncovered portions of a partially built house can flood, leading to pumping water and even drying out spaces with heaters and fans to remove standing water. Areas where trucks park, equipment gets staged, and materials are stored can also become flooded and muddy, which lead to other problems. The same can be said of commercial projects, but on a much larger scale. Trenches, foundations, and open spaces can become absolutely swamped after a rainstorm or snowmelt. This invites all sorts of issues that come with flooding, mud, and runoff. Collapsed trenches, when not protected, ruined materials, stuck equipment, limited work access, and a huge mess to top it all off. That's why it's best to have a dewatering plan in place before a project ever starts, taking measures to avoid potential flooding and have a means on hand to dry out wet areas if required. One of the most significant milestones we'll have on a new build is when the building is officially air and water tight. These two factors are what makes an interior space finishable, if that's a word. Now, getting to the point of being air and water tight includes having exterior walls and roofing in place to prevent water from getting in. Windows and exterior doors must be installed and other openings closed and sealed in order to properly condition the space inside. Even the base level of finished materials like sheetrock and underlayments are susceptible to getting ruined unless the area is protected from the rain at minimum. Interior finishes like taping and spackling, tile, carpet, and paint must be installed in dry, conditioned environments as well. So as you can see, the completion of a project that involves interior finishes relies heavily on reaching this milestone. I did not truly understand how strong wind can be until I began working in construction. I've been involved in projects where an entire 6-lane bridge had to be closed due to high winds. I've also worked on high-rise buildings where the wind up high is blowing twice as hard as what people experience on the ground below. Older doors can rip open from a closed position if the conditions are right. That's how strong the wind can be in a tall building. I've also seen 20 by 20 foot sheets of scaffold wrap fly off down the street like a candy wrapper. The same goes for sheets of plywood, temporary fencing, and other materials. Airborne material like these can and have killed people. So when high winds are in store, it's best to allocate some resources to battening down the hatches and securing stored items before the wind shows up. And last on our list of ways weather affects construction is mold. Mold is a fungus that needs a few key ingredients to fully flourish: moisture, heat, and darkness. Certain areas of a structure won't ever receive direct sunlight thanks to shadows, obstructions in the path of the sun. In kind, these areas will get little sun exposure after snow, hard rain, or heavy water usage during construction. That doesn't mean it won't get hot though. When we mix moisture, heat, and lack of sun, we get a recipe for mold. That is often why we see mold or algae growth on bricks, stones, wood, and other similar materials that sit mostly in the shade. Interiors are even more dangerous in terms of mold, since it often occurs out of sight, at least at first, until it festers into a massive issue. Moisture that gets inside a roof or wall cavity, behind sheetrock, or underneath floors can be the perfect catalyst for mold growth, especially during hot and humid months. This is true in both buildings under construction and in fully finished spaces alike. Whether it's caused by a leak, rain, or standing water, mold is a sneaky side effect of weather in construction that can silently develop into a hazardous environment if we're not diligent. That's why it's important to maintain humidity levels and move air around using fans, especially when direct sunlight isn't available. And that wraps up our discussion on the various effects that weather can have on the construction process. Now, what do you think? Is there anything you'd like to add to this list? Please let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, liking it and sharing it with someone you think would find it valuable is a huge help to our channel. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to stay in touch for future videos. This helps out the channel as well, and your support does not go unnoticed. And last but not least, check out the link in the description below if you're interested in virtual one-on-one mentorship sessions with yours truly. Thank you for watching. This is Patrick from PM Problems signing off, and until next time, cheers.